These freaking starters, man, they've captivated me because they feel equally real and fake. It's like magic. Whoever made these, if these turn out to be fake, they did their homework, scored some extra credit, and probably picked up a few college credits as well. It's that good. I'm willing to say, I feel like it's not crazy to say that these are the most real fakes that we have seen. Sure, people have gone much more out of the way to like make a fake print scan or, you know, print them out and put them in a picture frame. But when it comes to what we're looking at, when it comes to the raw art style and the reference material, it seems about as real as anything that we have seen. We're not talking about some like idealized garbage. I didn't look at this and go, well, I mean, I'm not talking about the Mimikyu. I looked at the Mimikyu and went, come on, that's like 99% fake right there. The last starter Pokemon leaks that we had, you know, you look at them and there's something off from the get-go. They look too good, you know? Someone's really trying to push something that they want. It's fan art. It isn't something that could potentially be real. So I wanted to do is investigate them a bit more because there's something else that gets me. Comparing it to all of the official concept art, there's something off. That even though the designs are good, the way that the art is made doesn't feel right. So what I did was I pulled a Rudy from Alpha Investments. I busted out the jeweler's loop, and that's why we're in Photoshop right now, so, you know, I could do all kinds of scribbly note-looking things. And I don't know how well this is going to pick up, because I noticed in my last video, YouTube kind of compressed it. So I'm recommending that if you haven't, like, if you can't really tell what's going on in the video, to kind of get a hold of these images for yourself, I'll be leaving links in the description down below to PokeShopper, who has posted all of the official concept art, because if we scroll in, we see a rosette pattern. And I mean, now my little highlight thing is a little too large, but there's a special little pattern here, and it looks like a print pattern, but this is absent in what we're dealing with here, that it looks a bit more blurred, that it becomes noisy. Now, this could be kind of the result of artifacting, and we're going to look into that a little bit later, but it seems like what could catch this out as fake is just the way that it's made. Like, I don't know if Game Freak is willing to go as far as making proprietary concept art printing setups to where we can actually have something that looks to be a bit more legitimate. Like, I don't know if the fear about that would be counterfeit, but I don't know who would be passing around like fake Pokemon around the office or anything, or what the advantage is if this gets leaked out. Like, if this gets leaked out, does that tell us that it's real instead of fake or something? So that's something really interesting. I mean, we can scroll in really deep and we can see that there is a special like kind of pattern going on. These are known as rosettes, or just kind of like these printing artifacts that they are pretty special. And even up here, it almost looks like a comic book. You know, we have this like orange with a little bit of like pink colors and red colors, and it ends up making the overall design that is somewhat less visible, but you can still like notice the patterns, and that's why I brought up Magic the Gathering. Now, this isn't a video about how to spot counterfeit cards in your favorite trading card game or anything, but it does kind of show these weird similarities that whatever was happening here at the Game Freak office, or whoever was putting out the reference material, there's something special that's going on that the average person isn't going to have access to, which is why this seems weird. This is why when you scroll in, you know, it seems noisy. It doesn't even seem like, even with factoring in compression, even factoring in all kinds of weird things that could happen while, you know, trying to either print it, scan it, or kind of compress it for posting on 4chan or something, we're not seeing this. And even if you go into the Incineroar, the lines, the black in the lines have their own rosette patterns and stuff like that that you can even see. So it holds on, it holds true. That's like, even like you can see that right here, you can see here, you can see it everywhere, but it just looks like for this, that part might have been missed, that someone just drew a line. Now, after finishing the video, I did realize there was a massive problem with my argument, so I'll address that here and then cut it in at some point, because I was thinking about it, and yeah, what if this is from a localization team? That means they're not going to have access to the same printing methods as Game Freak, or whatever fanciness was going on with the official art book for the reference material. So that could explain the inconsistency. I just feel like the noise, the patterns are a little off even for like official reference material, and unfortunately, this is the only other thing we have to work with. The garbage quality, artifacted, low resolution, just terribleness of the Alolan starter evolution link, that this is what we were given. So I mean, how does that even compare to what we're dealing with right now? But that also brings into a couple things into question. That the resolution of these starter Pokemon is incredibly high compared to what we've already had. So was this intentional, Or is this actually how it's done? Does Game Freak send out low resolution concept art, therefore in theory it could be harder to leak and distribute? But then that makes you think about how the reference material is actually distributed to the translation teams. Like, what if it's done physically? Well, if it's done physically, then why would the print be so off and look so amateur? Now I'm thinking about, what if it's movie style, confidential, manila envelope, just stacked with references of new Pokemon for the new games? That's kind of crazy, but yeah, then it wouldn't look like this because it would have been officially printed. So what if it was distributed as a media file? Say it's on a secure server, very restricted access. Well, then why isn't the raw file itself the one that's being leaked to 4chan? Instead, that means it feels like it's more work. It feels like it's riskier to take that file, print it out, and then scan it back in, and then whatever printing eccentricities come from this translation hub, that's going to show on this upload right here. I mean, you can actually tell. There's a couple of really weird things that show that this is a scan. You can kind of see on the bottom, it doesn't line up. The paper kind of overhangs. There's white, there's a black edge. It's not perfectly centered. It's kind of slanted a little. So, I mean, someone did put in their work. They wanted to print this out to make it look a little more genuine and then scan it back in. Therefore, it had like that authentic, confidential paper leak kind of feel to it. And even on the water guy, I think that's like a hair. So like a hair got in scanning. So is that actually something that would be on official material? If a hair got in, would they rescan it, or would they just keep it and then distribute it that way? So I mean, it feels like it'd be easier just to take the raw file, in which case, if we compare it back to this, it's smooth. So wherever it isn't super noisy and stuff like that, it's actually smooth. So there's no rosettes, but then there's also no noise in between here that we see on the reference material. So either way, the official or the fake that turned out to be real, the only reference that we have, is even different from what we're dealing with. So from both angles, it's still questionable because these look good and convincing at the same time. And maybe that's something about this, that it kind of prevents the level of noise that can affect it. Because even looking at some of the other scans, they actually hold up, and you can see that there was some kind of evenness there. There was something that's happening there that isn't happening there. And then when you scroll out and kind of look at everything from a larger point of view, there seems like there's print lines. It almost seems like a low-ish quality print. Now, they might have taken this to an actual printing place and had it printed out, but whatever was happening here, you can actually see color differences. That's what I have right here. There's darker greens and there's lighter greens, and you can see that in just kind of like a bar change of color. So there's dark, light, or there's dark right here, light right here, and then dark, light, dark. So I don't know if you can kind of see that as we scroll out or anything, but there are lines. There are these weird printing bars. They don't come off as the professional polished feel that we see in the official concept art that we have been given. Now also, when we look at it, I thought that this foot kind of looked weird over here. I'm not going to say that, oh, we have a weird anatomy thing going on, therefore fake. But again, this kind of seems like something sloppy that you would find in fan art and not necessarily like an official kind of Pokemon concept art. And then when we get to the Fire Bunny has it bad, which also might hint that, the printer was low on ink. Or maybe after, printing all these concept arts, maybe reprinting them to get them right, something was going on here, because you can see there's a line here, there's a line here, there's a line here. You can see various printing bars throughout all of this. I'm going to zoom in. Maybe you guys can catch it out a bit more. But yeah, you should be able to tell this right here. Inside that, there's light, and then there's a line inside of that. So it looks like a lower quality print. It doesn't look like, there's also no sign of the rosettes whatsoever. There's no sign of anything. This actually looks like, as you zoom in and compare it to the other things, it looks like this was sketched up in some kind of art program, done incredibly well, but the reprint of it, whatever Game Freak does to kind of confirm whatever a concept art is doing, is not there. Here's a Noivern. So Noivern concept art was flat. But even then, it didn't have noise. It wasn't pixely. This was like an official Noivern. So they can either super clean it up if they want to, but even then, it doesn't feel as clean. It seems a little different, This almost seems like a really polished concept art. This one kind of feels like it's trying to look like reference concept art leaked material. and that could just be from the little blurring and smoothing right here. So it's not like other concept art we've seen from other generations, but it's also not like what we see in the 7th generation. The blacks are usually pretty hard, but it's a pretty good quality printer, but we can still see some markings, some lines, like, you know, just whenever the printer's running over it, it hangs a little more, and then it just kind of leaves a runny-ish kind of spot. Let's zoom out a bit more. You can see that here. It's kind of all over the place and pretty bad. So that's something to note. I also wanted to pull up a Litten. Let me zoom out enough. I want to pull up Litten. It's like, even with Litten, so I have this, like, the facial expressions next to this. Litten, like, look at that. You can see there's rainbow colors inside of here. There's something that's going on. So even if it's blurred, even if it isn't, like, the highest quality, maybe it was scaled, maybe it was pretty different, maybe it was, like, compressed, because this is still some kind of, like, concept art stuff, so it ends up compressed. And even inside the whites actually have, like, I don't know how well that's going to be picked up on YouTube or anything, but you can actually see, like, an almost honeycomb shape. There's circles that connect together inside of this to kind of create the overall pattern. So there's darker and lightness. It's not just a pure white fill that has some noise in there. You can actually make out colors. You can make out these patterns, and it's not just completely noise like we see when we start scrolling in on this stuff right here. So that's another interesting thing to note. Now, the blue guy is what really tipped me off the most, because look at that blue color. That blue color is almost entirely noise. A lot of this blue is very noisy. I don't know what could cause that. I don't know why that's happening. But then I noticed that in the berry over here as well, that the berry effectively has the same kind of noise. That's a lot noisier, that there's a lot of weird funkiness going on that really kind of doesn't look like there's any rosette pattern going on. It's a complete randomness. So that's kind of strange. And then, yeah, since this guy's all blue, he has it pretty bad. Now, there is some kind of blurring. It does have, like, some light patternization to it, potentially, especially, like, over here. It doesn't look as bad, and it felt like if we were breaking down some kind of other Pokemon concept art or something else like that, it could maybe almost seem like a signature of something potentially real in its own way, but then it just seems like it has that weird, low-quality kind of touch to it, and that's why I'm fascinated by this. That the detail, the depth behind it is so strange from comparison to what we were dealing with. So that's why I want to go and bust out some of the other concept art. Now, Decidueye, one of the things I even noticed about Decidueye early on is that the rosettes, the pattern, it's like almost obnoxious with how well you can see it. It's like very comic booky, very cartoony, especially on these darker colors. You just kind of make it out, and then again, looking on this right here, that is not pure white. There's actually still circles. There's actually still patterns that fall in with this, even for the little scratchy marks and stuff. You know, it feels like more organically sketched in this way than what we have with the cleaner lines on these starters. That, yeah, when you zoom it in, it just kind of looks like you draw a line, and then it does that, and then it kind of gets refracted down and smooths out and stuff. So that's kind of weird. Even this red blur not kind of lining up the same way. See, like, the colors are too dull, they're too flat, they had noise. Maybe that was actually what the artist did. The artist put in noise to kind of, maybe that's why this is catching me and everyone else off guard, that there's actually a little bit of noise in there. There's something that makes it feel rough. It doesn't feel like it's this clean, sterile concept art, that it has been roughed up. It has been treated in a way to look legitimate. So again, whoever did this did their work, and it's a scary, scary amount of work. Now, what I also wanted to do was kind of bring in Incineroar. So I scaled up Incineroar, scaled it down, scaled it up, scaled it down. I tried to mimic artifacting as much as possible. I tried to mimic just kind of compression and anything that would happen, posting it to 4chan, not having the cleanest leaks. Because we're looking at the concept art, you know, this is the official concept art. This is the clean, published, beautiful looking stuff. You know, you don't want fuzziness, you don't want it to look bad. It might have even been like touched up or redone a little just to look as good as possible for the art book, but even then, it's going to look different when compressed. These lines are going to be even smudgier, you know, like we don't get this clean line while also losing the rosette pattern. And even then, there's like this weird blurriness. Like you can see that there's still dots of different colors. Like we have an orange, can we zoom it in without like making it look terrible? We have an orange dot, and then like a row of pink dots and stuff. So I mean, the colors still kind of like they don't look pixelated. It doesn't look noisy, it looks blurry. So yeah, like we can zoom it in and kind of like compare right there that there's still blurriness. You can't make out rosettes. So even if the rosettes are lost, or even if this unique signature is lost, it's still creating a different pattern than what this concept art that we have right here is doing. I brought in Rowlet. Again, it's smooth, but Actually very, very pronounced with the white ones as well. The green, still like very high definition, very good hues right there. This is what started to throw me though for a bit. And then when looking at Brion, the blue does seem to have this different element to it. I don't know if this is a product of the concept art or maybe just the color blue when working in this graphics kind of setting, but you can see that for most of it, it's more like a white. You know, you can still see these little circle patterns. There's still like little dots and stuff. So there is something that can be made out between the darker and lighter blues and then even the whites and stuff. But there also appears to be some kind of empty white space, and the lines don't have as much rosetting to them as we've seen in the Incineroar. But even then, like, if we digest this text, it looks a little different. This kind of like seafoam color, it has that comic book, you know, just little bits of white and little dots of color kind of fleshing it out. So even in like the worst, smoothest case for this, it's still a pretty hard sell to compare it to some of the concept art that we've already seen. I was just kind of pulling up the other ones. We have the English example with James right here. I mean, it's blurry, but it isn't as pronounced, but you can still kind of see. So even when compressed, even when blurred a bit, we still kind of keep these good line edges, and then everything else looks good. So I mean, that's something right there. Toxapex kind of going in on that blue color. So it does seem to be an issue with the blue overall. The darker blue is a bit more like easy to tell on these patterns right here, but then it does kind of get a little smooth. So just kind of like comparing Brion, the starters, and then just pulling in Poplio, kind of get those colors. It's not pixelated. It doesn't, yeah, so I think that's it, guys. Does this completely debunk it? No, but it is one of those things that's just been nagging me. The weirdness, the strangeness of everything that's going on right here with why these look so good for a fake that just gets posted on 4chan or something. If they turn out to be real, I don't even know. But yeah, and that's another thing. Like, there's even noise inside the shadows. I think that's something to be concerned about. The shadows are usually done a bit more cleaner under the same pattern. The white. So I mean, there's parts of it that make it look like it was compressed and that it has artifacts and stuff. But then the lines don't show as much compression and artifacting. The whites kind of have it for just seemingly no reason. The inside of the eyes don't have as much detail as we see. So it's really, really good, really soft, really doctored in a way that makes it feel real compared to something else that we've seen. That might be why it's so scary. I don't know what else I can say about it, but my goodness, it's wild, and I'm fascinated. That's why I like keep talking about it. I want an answer more than anything. I don't care if it's real or fake at this point. I just want to know what it means.